I sometimes wonder if the ghost of her still lingers in the dust motes dancing in the workshop light, a faint echo of a laugh carried on the breeze from the open window. It's been years now, but certain smells, a particular floral perfume on a stranger, the specific tang of expensive coffee, can still pull me back to that life, to the man I was before. Liam O'Connell, 34, a bespoke furniture maker in Brooklyn, New York. That man poured his soul into things that lasted. Solid oak, dovetail joints, the intricate grain of a forgotten story brought back to life. He poured his soul into a person too. And that person, Clara, meticulously, silently, took a sledgehammer to everything he thought was real. Our brownstone, a testament to my craft and our shared future, was supposed to be a sanctuary. Every beam, every floorboard, every piece of furniture inside it told a story of my hands, my meticulous care, my love. I remember the smell of fresh-cut lumber mixing with the scent of coffee in the mornings, the way the light fell just right through the tall windows onto the antique desk I'd restored for her, a rich mahogany gleaming like liquid amber. We were planning our dream wedding, the invites already sent, the tasting menus debated with playful arguments, the future laid out before us, seemingly flawless. I loved Clara with a depth that felt limitless, an overwhelming, all-consuming devotion that built the world around us brick by brick. My world, at least. Her world, I would eventually learn, was built on a different, more fluid foundation. She was vibrant, incandescent almost, when we met at a gallery opening where one of my pieces was displayed. Her eyes, a startling shade of blue, locked onto mine with an intensity that made my carefully constructed world feel instantly more vivid. Clara worked in marketing, a high-octane world of pitches and deadlines, a stark contrast to my quiet craft. But it was that very contrast, I told myself, that made us so perfect. She brought a thrilling spontaneity to my methodical life, and I, perhaps, offered her a grounding she craved. She was ambitious, yes, fiercely so. She spoke of grand plans, of climbing corporate ladders and building empires. At first, I found it exhilarating, a fascinating glimpse into a drive I didn't possess in the same way. Her focus, her unwavering belief in her own trajectory, seemed like a strength, a sign of someone who knew exactly what she wanted. There were whispers, almost inaudible, right from the start. Little things. A slight flicker in her eyes when she spoke of her past, a quick dismissal of a deeper question, an almost imperceptible shift in her tone if I challenged her on something, however gently. I remember once, early on, she told me a story about a conflict with a colleague, painting herself as the wronged party, and the details felt a little too perfect, too rehearsed. My intuition, a quiet voice I'd always learned to trust in my workshop, offered a slight tremor. But then she would laugh, a bright, captivating sound, and touch my arm, and I'd dismiss it as my own overthinking, my introverted nature clashing with her dynamic personality. We were building something beautiful, weren't we? This brownstone, this life, this future. I attributed any unease to the usual anxieties of deep commitment, the fear of losing something so precious once you finally found it. We were solid, or so I believed. My hands, accustomed to finding the unseen flaws in wood, were blind to the growing cracks in the foundation of my own life. The first real tremors began subtly, almost imperceptibly, like the slow warp of a perfectly planed board. Clara's new business venture, a nebulous startup in the tech space, started consuming her. She introduced me to Mark, her business partner, at a networking event I begrudgingly attended. He was slick, confident, with an unnervingly intense gaze. I remember feeling an immediate, visceral discomfort around him, a prickle of unease that I again chastised myself for. It was just professional jealousy, I told myself. Mark was everything I wasn't, loud, brash, a natural salesman. Clara seemed to thrive on his energy. Soon, the networking events became more frequent, stretching late into the night. Her phone, once a shared portal to our lives, became a guarded extension of her hand. Texts would come through, she'd glance at them, a small, secretive smile playing on her lips, and then quickly tuck the phone away. When I'd ask who it was, she'd wave it off. Just Mark. Business. You wouldn't understand, Liam. It's a fast-paced world. My concerns, always voiced gently, were met with an increasingly familiar dismissiveness. She'd sigh, sometimes a little too dramatically, and say, "Are you really going to be like this, Liam? So insecure? Is my ambition really so threatening to you?" She'd twist my concern into a flaw in my character, making me question my own perceptions. I'd find myself apologizing, feeling guilty for even having the thought. The pre-wedding stress, I'd tell myself. That's all this is. We're both under a lot of pressure. But the knot in my stomach tightened, a cold, hard stone that seemed to grow with each passing day. My sleep became fractured, haunted by vague anxieties. The workshop, once my sanctuary, felt suffocating. I'd sand a piece of wood, my hands moving on instinct, but my mind would be replaying Clara's words, her dismissive glances, the way she'd recoil slightly when I reached for her in bed. A chasm was opening, and I felt myself slipping into it. The late-night call started. Her phone would ring softly, a muted vibration against the bedside table, well past midnight. She'd slip out of bed, murmuring something about urgent business. Mark needed her input on a pitch, and take the call in the living room, her voice a low murmur I couldn't quite decipher. I'd lie there, rigid, listening to the muffled sounds, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Each night, a little piece of me frayed. I began noticing how she dressed for these events. More carefully, more provocatively, a subtle shift from her usual professional elegance to something a little more seductive. Her perfume, a new, heady scent, became an unwelcome reminder of her absence. The lies, once subtle, became more glaring. She'd tell me she was at a downtown launch, then a friend would casually mention seeing her uptown. Small discrepancies, easy to explain away, but they piled up, a quiet avalanche threatening to bury me. I felt like I was losing my mind, caught in a swirling vortex of doubt and self-recrimination. Was I going crazy? Was I projecting my own fears onto her? She made me feel like I was. Her calm, collected denials, her accusations of my paranoia, were incredibly effective. I started to believe her, or at least, I desperately wanted to. The breaking point arrived with a cruel irony, a detail meticulously crafted by fate itself. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon. I was in the brownstone, putting the finishing touches on a small, antique writing desk I had painstakingly restored for Clara as a surprise anniversary gift. It was a piece I'd found in a dusty corner of an estate sale, its intricate carvings choked with grime, its surface scarred by years of neglect. I'd spent weeks on it, stripping away the old varnish, repairing the delicate inlays, bringing the mahogany back to its rich, original luster. It was a gift of my craft, a piece of my heart. As I gently wiped down the interior of a hidden compartment, a secret drawer I'd carefully relined with velvet, my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. It was a phone, a sleek, black device, foreign to my memory. Not her usual phone, the one she always had clutched in her hand, the one with our photos as the lock screen. This one was different. My heart stuttered, a sickening lurch in my chest. My hands, usually so steady, trembled as I picked it up. It wasn't locked. Or maybe she'd been careless, assuming it was safe in the very desk I had poured my love into for her. The screen lit up, a blinding revelation. Messages. Hundreds of them. From Mark. My breath hitched. The words blurred, then sharpened, cutting through my mind like shards of glass. Pet names. Intimate jokes. Planning meetings that weren't about business. And then, the photos. Not just pictures of Mark, but of Clara and Mark, together, laughing, touching, on trips I knew nothing about. Hotel bookings. Flight confirmations. Dates stretching back months. Our shared life. Our engagement. Our wedding plans. All woven into a sickening tapestry of deception, a meticulous parallel existence I knew nothing about. The explicit language, the raw, undeniable intimacy of their exchanges, burned into my vision. The man I was, the man who believed in the inherent goodness of his fiancée, fractured into 1,000 pieces. I stood there, the phone heavy in my hand, the brownstone suddenly cold and alien. The air grew thick, suffocating. I could hear my own ragged breathing, a desperate sound. How long? How could she? The questions hammered at me, each one a fresh wound. Every dismissal, every late-night call, every guarded glance, every instance of gaslighting. It all clicked into place, forming a hideous mosaic of betrayal. The cracks weren't just widening, they had shattered the entire structure. Clara walked in an hour later, vibrant as ever, smelling of that new, heady perfume. She smiled, a bright, practiced smile, as if nothing in the world was amiss. My voice, when it came, felt foreign, scraped raw. I held out the phone to her. Her eyes, those startling blue eyes, flickered from my face to the device, and a slow, almost imperceptible change came over her. The brightness faded, replaced by a cold, calculating stillness. I asked her, "What is this, Clara? Who is this man?" My voice was barely a whisper. She looked at the phone, then at me. Her expression was utterly devoid of remorse, almost bored. She sighed, a small, dismissive sound that was all too familiar. "Oh, Liam, I suppose you were bound to find out eventually." My world imploded. The words she said next, spoken with an unnerving calm, would echo in my mind for years, a testament to her chilling capacity for cruelty. She said, "You were just too soft, Liam. Too predictable. Too safe. Mark offers a more exciting future. A future where I don't have to pretend." Pretend. The word gutted me. Our love, our life, our dreams, all of it a pretense. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She just stood there, her gaze steady, almost challenging. It was clinical, surgical in its precision. The man I was, who believed in the warmth of shared blankets and the honest grain of wood, simply ceased to exist. I felt a profound, physical shock, a sense of being utterly hollowed out. The air left my lungs. My knees buckled. I found myself sitting on the floor, the polished wood of the desk, my gift, my love, looming over me like a silent, mocking witness. The days that followed were a blur of pain, a crushing weight that pinned me to the bed. I canceled the wedding myself, each phone call a fresh stab to the heart, each apology for their inconvenience feeling like an admission of my own failure. My voice was monotone, hollow. I heard the pity in the voices on the other end, the awkward silences, the murmured condolences, and I just wanted to disappear. Clara moved out quickly, efficiently, as if shedding an old skin. She took her things, her carefully curated wardrobe, her expensive art books, her subtle cruelties. She left behind the emptiness, the silence, and the profound wreckage of my trust. The brownstone, once filled with the promise of a future, became a mausoleum of broken dreams. Every corner, every window, every piece of furniture held a memory, now tainted, twisted into something grotesque. The smell of sawdust, usually a comfort, now felt like ash in my lungs. I moved through the house like a ghost, touching the smooth, polished surfaces I had crafted, feeling nothing but the cold reality of betrayal. I made the decision to sell it. I couldn't breathe in those walls anymore. The for sale sign in the yard felt like a gravestone for the life I thought I had. The depression that followed was a black ocean. I drowned in it. The workshop, once my refuge, stood silent, gathering dust. The tools, extensions of my hands, lay unused. My phone remained silent, friends' calls going unanswered. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. My body became a hollow vessel for pain. I questioned everything, my judgment, my sanity, my worth. Was I truly too soft? Was I so unexciting, so predictable, that someone could lie to me for months, planning a whole other life under my nose? The thought gnawed at me, a relentless, insidious parasite. I replayed every conversation, every glance, every moment we shared, dissecting them for clues I had missed, for signs of the deception that had been so expertly hidden. Each memory, once cherished, now felt like a cruel trick, a carefully orchestrated illusion. I had been a fool, a naive, trusting fool. The self-loathing was almost as unbearable as the heartbreak. I felt like a craftsman whose masterpiece had been revealed to be a shoddy, fraudulent imitation. Rock bottom came slowly, insidiously. I'd wake up some mornings and just stare at the ceiling for hours, the light changing, the day passing, without any desire to move. The sheer effort of existing felt monumental. I lost weight. My reflection in the mirror was a stranger, gaunt, hollow-eyed, a shadow of the man I'd been. One particularly dark afternoon, as the autumn light faded and the brownstone grew cold, I found myself sitting in my silent workshop, surrounded by the ghosts of unfinished projects. My hands, calloused and strong, felt useless, empty. I picked up a chisel, its cool weight familiar in my palm, and ran my thumb along its sharpened edge. For a fleeting, horrifying moment, I understood the allure of oblivion. But then, something shifted. A faint whisper of anger, an ember deep within the ashes. Not at Clara, not directly. At myself, for allowing her to diminish me so completely. I remembered the feeling of accomplishment, the quiet satisfaction of seeing a raw piece of wood transform under my hands, becoming something beautiful, something enduring. That voice, my intuition, had been screaming at me all along, and I had silenced it. I had to reclaim it. I couldn't let her have that power over me anymore. The first step was the hardest. A friend, one of the few I hadn't completely pushed away, called for the 10th time. This time, I answered. His voice, steady and kind, cut through the fog. He didn't push, he just listened. And I, for the first time in months, started to talk, haltingly, painfully, giving voice to the buried shame and hurt. He suggested therapy, and though the thought of dissecting my brokenness felt overwhelming, something in me knew it was right. Therapy was brutal. Week after week, I sat in that quiet room, peeling back the layers of deception, not just Clara's, but my own. I had to confront my passivity, my tendency to prioritize her happiness over my own well-being, my deep-seated trust that had been weaponized against me. I learned about gaslighting, about emotional abuse, about how a manipulative personality slowly erodes your sense of reality. It was a slow, agonizing process of reevaluating every memory, every conversation, seeing the subtle cues I had dismissed, the patterns of control I had ignored. It wasn't my fault, my therapist gently insisted. Her actions were about her, her insecurity, her need for external validation, her inability to be honest. It wasn't about me being too soft. It was about her being broken. That realization, though painful, began to set me free. Then came the commission. A challenging one, a memorial art piece for a community garden. A large, intricate bench, incorporating elements of nature and remembrance. It required meticulous planning, precise joinery, and a vision to transform raw lumber into something meaningful, something that would stand the test of time, bearing witness to solace and memory. It was perfect. I threw myself into it, my hands moving with an almost desperate intensity. The smell of sawdust, once a source of pain, slowly became a balm. The rhythmic scrape of a plane, the tap of a mallet, the focused concentration, grounded me. Each cut, each joint, each smooth curve I shaped with my hands felt like an act of defiance, a quiet declaration of my own resilience. I poured my pain, my anger, my grief, into the wood, shaping it, refining it, transforming it. It was a difficult, demanding project, pushing my skills to their limit. But with each passing day, as the piece took form, I felt a flicker of the old Liam, the craftsman who found purpose and solace in creation. I was building something new, literally and metaphorically, from the wreckage of my life. The memorial bench, when finally complete, was more than just a piece of furniture. It was a testament to survival, to the enduring power of creation over destruction. The wood, carefully selected, polished to a deep sheen, felt strong, honest. Standing before it, my hands running over the smooth surface, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment, a quiet victory. I had faced the darkness, navigated the depths of despair, and emerged with something beautiful, something real. I'm still in Brooklyn, still working in my shop. The brownstone is gone, sold to a lovely young couple who, I hope, will fill it with genuine joy. I moved into a smaller, simpler place, an apartment above my workshop. It's quiet, filled with the scent of wood and the honest hum of my machines. I still create, still bring old pieces back to life, still craft bespoke furniture for people who appreciate the artistry, the permanence, the unspoken stories held within the grain. The scars are still there, of course. The memory of Clara's calm betrayal, her dismissive words, will always be a part of me. But they no longer define me. The hollow ache has been replaced by a quiet strength, a renewed trust in my own intuition, and a profound appreciation for authenticity. I've learned that sometimes, the most dangerous cracks aren't visible on the surface. They're the ones that run through the very foundation of who you believe someone to be. I haven't sought another relationship. Not yet. I'm learning to find comfort in solitude, in the rhythm of my craft, in the honest company of good friends. I'm building a life that is truly mine, piece by painstaking piece, a life built on solid, truthful foundations. I'm not the same man who believed in a perfect, flawless future. I'm stronger, wiser, perhaps a little more guarded, but ultimately more whole. I've learned that true beauty isn't about the absence of flaws, but about the enduring strength found in healing, in rebuilding, and in trusting the quiet voice of my own heart. The ghost of her may still linger in the dust, but the warmth of my own renewed spirit has finally chased it away. The craftsman, once broken, has finally reforged himself,